This is such a weird question, actually. And one of the latest things that I've learned, and we released an episode recently that was titled "The Most Important Question in the World," and what it was essentially a composite of prior guests on the What Is Money show answering the question, "What is money?" And my editor did a great job of slicing these together. And one of my takeaways from that particular episode, we released one of these, we released a second one. I think we've got 2 or 3 more in the backlog. So we have like 4 to 5 hours that we've accumulated of guests answering that question, what is money, over our 300 some odd episodes that we've released now. So it's been very interesting. But my takeaway from that particular composite episode was that it seemed to be asking the question, what is money, seemed to be a kind of a psychological mirror, perhaps, in that the way that guests answer the question is somewhat telling of their own character. Now, this is a hypothesis. I'm not saying that this is a conclusive fact. It's just an observation I made after we released it. And I listened to that episode. And a for instance would be like, if you listen to the Sailor series, he'll describe money as the highest energy that humans can channel. Or I think he also calls it something like an amalgam of all the powers that humans can possibly harness, right? So you can use money, for instance, to acquire or channel kinetic energy, chemical energy, gravitational energy, thermal energy, et cetera, et cetera. Money's like this meta structure that lets you tap into really anything that humans are capable of harnessing. And so his answer to that question, it kind of tells you something about perhaps tells you something about Sailor's actual psychology, and that, well, he's a powerful guy. He's an effective entrepreneur. He's a historian, right? He's thought deeply about these topics for clearly many years. He's very widely read. And he's, focused a lot of his reading on like ancient Roman history and other very successful entrepreneurs like Carnegie and, the oil tycoons, steel tycoons, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like his perspective on money, not only is it telling about kind of the nature and structure and ontology of money itself, but it's also revealing something about the actual individual answering the question too. And then if you go forward one series to the Booth series, Jeff Booth will give you this very academic description of how money works and how it flows between people. But then he also takes a step back and says something like, to the effect of, money doesn't really matter. It's more about love and relationships and belonging. And so that seems to be kind of telling about how he individually chooses to lead his life. And I don't know. I'm not maybe answering your question, what is money per se, but it's just the thing I've been thinking about recently, is that asking that particular question had this very unexpected result that just occurred to me, like I said, when we released this thing a couple of weeks ago, that it seems to be serving as a psychological mirror of sorts, that in which you see the subtle or perhaps deeper character of the individual answering the question reflected. And that's been, I don't know, like it just caught me off guard. So like every time I feel so fortunate to have launched this show. And then now the whole world, you've got Breedlove on national TV saying that the defining question is, what is money? And then you've got Elon Musk making these big appearances saying, what is money? It's like, it seems to be like it's quickly becoming the defining question of our era. And maybe in 50 years' time, or something like that, we'll look back on it as such. So I feel very fortunate to have kind of struck digital gold, perhaps, or posed a question that's very concordant with the current zeitgeist. I already had that gratitude and appreciation in place, but now, again, watching that composite episode, it blew my mind again. I was like, oh my goodness, wow, you're actually seeing something else about. There's a conversation beneath the conversation, right? There's a response beneath the response to the question, and I found that to be fascinating. And again, I call it a psychological mirror. I don't know. This is like a term that I've put to this thing that I'm trying to describe. But it's interesting to me, again, that it's most of the answers we have for money tend to have this reflective property. That money is not wealth, but it reflects wealth. Prices are a reflection on the consequences of human action in relation to capital. And, I think this speaks to the relationship between money and human rationality, that human rationality is this self-reflective faculty that we have, and money somehow enables or extends that we're actually able to extend human rationality into the material domain in a very real way. So, yeah, just a very, very interesting question. And I'm just grateful to have it as the namesake of the show. And it keeps yielding more and more insights to me.